So this is 22 Sophia Street. It's one house down the road, and looking in the opposite direction, it goes down to a quiet cul-de-sac, and just beyond that immediate tree line is the lake. Looking at the front of the house, on the right-hand side, it's well fenced, timber fence with a concrete foundation beneath, and then some lattice work at the top. Extends the fence line up to around 2 metres in height, and that runs right the way back to the garage. There is a very small garden on the right-hand side, and we'll have a look at that later when we get around the back-hand side. So at the front, we've got quite a tall garage. Got a little entry space that goes into a covered patio, and then the house itself, and beautiful mountains in behind it. We come across to the left-hand side of the property. Fence line on this side is much lower. Starts at around 1.4 at the front. Probably a better build material than timber. It's a colorbond style fence. Starting at 1.4, goes up to a maximum height of around 1.6. It would be very easy to put some lattice work on top of that, give you some privacy whilst maintaining those really beautiful mountain views. In the front garden, got a combination of man ferns, an assortment of different plants. I think there's a buddleia back there. We've got a citrus and an olive tree. It's winter and the sun's pretty low, but it's has really good sunlight at the front of the house. So when we look at the front of the house, it'd be tempting to probably put another window into the right-hand side of the front of the house. Understand layout. On the left-hand side, we have the dining room. You can see the wood fire in the corner. As we move across to the right-hand side, this is the kitchen. There's our covered walkway. And as we move around the front, having a look at some of the details, there's a small raised garden bed, a bunch of tomatoes or something in there. There's our olive tree, citrus, timber work at the base. Probably wouldn't hurt to tighten up, but it's looking relatively good. The construction, or the cladding, is metal. And then we come around to our front steps. A really nice little patio. But from the patio, spectacular views. Once you just put in a tiny bit of privacy screening here, such that you're able to sit in a chair. Around about 600mm of privacy screening will get above the next door house, but maintain a beautiful skyline and the ridge line of the mountain out to the east. It's very, very beautiful. The deck's in reasonable condition. Probably could do with a blast and either a paint or some sealant, but it's not buckled or worn. The same goes for the banisters. Bit of paint coming off them, bit of sand, repaint, and they'll come back really nicely. Moving down the house, at the end of the porch there's a built-in section with a security door, so it can actually be closed. And you go around the corner to the front door, which has another screen and then the actual door in behind it. Reasonably well built, fully enclosed, easy to pop a couple of hooks up here for your coats, dog leashes, all that kind of thing. So it's a really nice little front porch. So turning around and heading back out, see your neighbours across the road. We'll head around into the backyard. So a little side lawn, combination of moss and grass, but not boggy underfoot. Just to get your bearings, there's the front door. So I'm going to go through this little side gate and into the backyard. This is the back of the house. Got a television aerial just there. And then this window here, she goes into the master bedroom. As we come into the backyard, got an assortment of fruiting trees, got lots of little sheds, a lot of sheds back here. So let's start from the left-hand side of the back garden. The colour-bond fence, to give you a reference again, there's the gate that we just came through. The fence continues and then becomes an assortment of different materials as we head towards the back of the property. Certainly dog proof, it's still around 1.6, 1.7 high. We've got a funny little chicken coop here, ready to go. There's a little compost bin here, still looks like it's in working order, but you can see our fence in behind is an assortment of materials, garden gates, and then in behind that is a shed on the neighbouring property, which looks like a sort of two sheds, a lean-to coming off the larger shed. It looks like we might have raspberries or something like that back here as well. We've got more citrus trees, potentially apples or peaches, apricots, not quite sure, a bit hard to tell at this point of the year. Walking around the backyard, middle of winter, not boggy at all. Got some fully screened areas, so no doubt we've got some possum problems over here. Got a little woodshed. Yet again at the back. If I come around to the western side of the property, and you can see that that fence from the front of the property continues all the way through to the back on the western side. So the timber fence, and then up the top, the bit of lattice work. The lattice work looks like it's a plastic lattice. Yep, plastic lattice. As we come down into the bottom western corner of the property, there's a few fencing things that need to be done here. But yet again, I've got a colour-bond fence continuing through. Wouldn't be a big deal to use some ad hoc materials, and at a later stage, just properly fence the backyard. Said, there's an assortment of sheds in the backyard. Fairly basic sheds, but not a bad little gardening shed. So a good one for the potting mixes and whatnot. Backyard's not too overgrown, but could probably do with a little bit of work. And if we continue round, it's a bit of a maze back here. There is another garden shed on the western side of the property. If we open that shed, yet again, same size as the last one, maybe a good little tool shed. So we're still on the western side of the property, so for your reference you've still got that fence with the lattice at the top, and this is just looking up the side of the garage, and we've got a little bit of fencing up right up the end. There's some very mature pot plants back in here. Mum, you'd be impressed. That's a bigger pot plant than even you have. That is a tree. Good sunlight in this corner. especially later in the day. Got a good space to make a nice little garden. There's some funny little sheds at the back here. So we've got the larger shed above, which is the garage, and this really low shed. And when I say low, it's probably 1.6 metres in height, quite difficult to get into. We do have a little tank at the back. Not quite sure what the firewood on top's about, but it's full. It doesn't seem to be leaking. So as we approach the back of the house, this is the other end of that enclosed patio. So we'll go right at the window so you can see through. And you can see the glass windows on the other side with some curtains on them. We can see the entrance into the garage. We can see an old Aga or something similar just there. Over in the other corner, we can see some concrete steps. A little hard to see. Some concrete steps that lead up into the house, and we can see that the door, the fly screen door to the house, is open. Behind that is a bit of a panel wall, some things hanging off it. And behind that panel is the front door. So the property kind of has two front doors. The view, so I'm right on the back porch here. So this is though you've walked out of that enclosed area. We've just turned around and there's our really magnificent view. It's only with a little bit of fencing you can achieve the privacy you want in this backyard. Alright, so that's the outside of the property. We'll head back around and have a look at some of the details. So the end of the flashing, look, it's all metal. Probably wouldn't hurt at some stage to just clean it up and maybe repaint it. The stumping looks okay, but some of this panelling is leaves a bit to be desired. But really, the panelling is just about keeping large animals out from underneath the property, so it's achieving its job. And coming back up towards the front, nice little strawberry patch here in the corner. Here's our front veranda again. Getting when we look at some of the details. The gutters are in reasonable condition. Maybe at some point might need a paint. The porch roof all looks secure. Got a combination of laser light and tin roofing. Outdoor light looks good. We've got a paved walkway coming into the house. Now it's grassed from the paved walkway through to the driveway. It's most likely that whenever you're using the car, you would go out the door. Let's just start calling this one the back door. I reckon you'd use that door the most. However, it wouldn't be very hard to put a bit of a deco pathway in here. There's a couple of things that surprised me. I'm looking at a tap here. I'm a little confused why that is such an elevated drain. Also got our Telstra line coming into the house. The meter box is just here, and old style meter box, but really conveniently located, very accessible for meter readers. Not quite sure why it's two. Some very strange remnant pot plants. But yeah, concreted at the front door, so you're not going to have a boggy front door, and then gravel beyond. And then front door, tap at the front, a garden bed with succulents and what looks like a dead tree. It's a strange arrangement of how they've brought the ceiling in to fit with the rest of the house, and it does get a little awkward over here in the corner. I'm curious why they've actually done that. I can only think that that is to ensure water doesn't flow into the space, but without a ladder I wouldn't really be able to tell. Coming back around here, there's a little bit of mildew, so for the most part just a bit of a scrub and a clean. Have to look at the front of the house. Very dried out paint, so just needs a repaint. It looks like they've literally just put a house paint over the top of the original colour bond. Not quite sure why they did that. See if we can see through this window. There you go, you can see the start corner of the back door, and then you can just make out the back door into the house itself proper, and a bunch of shelving and whatnot. There does seem to be a lot of furniture in the house when I look through the windows. I'm not quite sure what's going on there. Righty. The only other thing I'm a little confused by is this little chimney. I have no idea what that connects to, unless it's the actual extraction fan. Pretty extravagant. The other thing I've noticed is that whilst the power, you can see a power line running down here. There's the original power line hookup, but the power to this property actually hooks up from the rear of the property, and so we can see some power lines running between properties, which is very unusual. So likely there may be a power easement running over the top of the property. So if I walk in towards the backyard again, there's a power line. The power line's more likely to pass over the top of the property to the back with the shed. But we would want to check easements before we do any fencing or whatnot, and find that energy company wants to rip it all up. Cool. That's it. I'll make another. Oh, let's have a look at these. These are the fly screen covers. Not perfect, not bad. They'll do for the interim. If we do need to replace them at any point, they're relatively cheap to replace. We have a look at that flashing at the bottom. When we come out of the deck side, this is just a matter of paint, really. Yet again, probably doesn't have to be done for a number of years. Interestingly, the one place so far in the house that doesn't have any flashing is underneath the porch. And if we look really closely under there, you can see a bit of an old concrete slab. That concrete slab, I would assume, actually runs all the way under here, and is actually the pathway that we can see at the front. So when I've looked at other properties in Tulla, they don't have the built-on porch, they just have a concrete pathway leading into the house. So the big advantage of this property is that it's got an enclosed porch, which is a really nice place to sit. Like I said, especially as soon as you get some privacy. So I'm just going to sit in a different chair this time, just to see what the view looks like again. And this is the view from the porch. So once you get a tiny bit of privacy screening, like I said, no more 400 to 600 high, and then you fill this front yard with some hoplands, this is going to feel very, very magical in here. I come back around the other side, out the front. It's a really beautiful spot. Really, really lovely.